Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the installment of Scott's Selections here for Sunday, December 20th. Before getting into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. We had a brutal Saturday, just going to be straightforward with it. We ended up going 0-4. Really wasn't great. Lost all three games in college football. We had Missouri, we had Alabama, we had Ohio State. None of them covered. And then in college basketball, we had a pretty bad beat there with UMBC -3. They were up, 9 with about 8 to go. They were up, I forgot what exactly the breakdown was, but they ended up having a shot to push. They were up 1 with about 10 seconds left or so, got fouled. 83% free throw shooter, bricks the front end of the 1-1, and UMBC ends up winning by 1. So pretty unfortunate Saturday. We'll look to bounce back here on Sunday. And there's going to be no college basketball play because of the fact that I simply don't like the card. Couple games I thought about, couple lines not out yet, so for that reason I decided to pass on it. But instead we're going to be looking at the NFL. We're going to be looking at a two-team teaser here on Sunday for Week 15. And for the first play of this teaser, it's going to be a 6-point teaser on FanDuel that pays out at -120. And the first matchup is going to be on Seattle. We're going to tease them down from 6.5 to 0.5. And the reason why I like Seattle in this spot, simply put, is because of the fact that Washington is going to be without Alex Smith, which means that it's the return of Dwayne Haskins. And I think we all know how that's going to go because Haskins is a pretty brutal quarterback in the NFL. There's a reason why he was demoted to the third-string quarterback by Ron Rivera at the start of the season. Then he basically intentionally violated COVID protocols in order to potentially get himself traded, and now he's back starting, but he's not very good. And Seattle has, of course, Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, bunch of phenomenal weapons, which is why Seattle's averaging 30.2 points per game. But looking at Washington, they're on a 4-game winning streak, so people might be a little bit squeamish to take this pick. However, it is worth mentioning that Washington, during the 4-game winning streak, hasn't really faced anybody, especially a prolific offense like Seattle. You look at who they've beaten. They beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati's awful. They beat Dallas. Dallas is terrible. They beat Pittsburgh, which is impressive, except for the fact that Pittsburgh's offense has definitely fallen apart over the last couple of weeks, which we've seen. And you also have San Francisco in the last game where they won by 8 on the road, and the offense did absolutely nothing in that game. The only reason why they won is because the defense had 2 defensive touchdowns, and Nick Mullins is an awful quarterback. But looking at Washington in that game, they had less than 200 total yards of offense, and they only had 12 first downs, and they still beat the 49ers. I don't think they're going to get that lucky against Seattle. Seattle simply just has too many weapons on offense, even though I will give Washington's defense credit because I do think that Chase Young is an absolute monster, and I do think that they will have some success creating some problems for Russell Wilson. At the end of the day, Washington's offense, when Haskins came in, was absolutely broken. They really couldn't do anything, and I simply think that Seattle should be able to do enough offensively in order to win this game outright. Looking at Seattle, the issue that you had with them earlier in the year is the fact that their defense was awful. However, if you look at what they've done in the last couple of weeks, they've actually been pretty good because if you look at their last 5 games, they have not allowed more than 23 points in a single game. The Rams gave up 23, Cardinals, they have 21, Eagles, 17, Giants, 17, and Jets, 3. Now, some of those teams are really bad offensively. Other teams are the Cardinals, and they definitely shut them down, giving up 21 points. So at the end of the day, I think Washington's going to struggle. I think Washington will probably finish with around 14 to 17 points. I think Seattle should do enough to score at least 20. So I do think that even if they might not cover the full game spread at 6.5, I do think at -0.5, that is a pretty solid deal based on all the variables I just mentioned. And the second play in the 6-point teaser is going to be on the Tennessee Titans. We're going to tease them down from 8.5 to -2.5. And by the way, these two plays are based on the current lines at 3:05 a.m. Eastern time. But for the Titans game, I know that there has been some rumors about Matthew Stafford playing after he was supposed to most likely miss the game, according to some injury reports on Friday. At the end of the day, I don't think it really matters because of the fact that the Lions, first of all, are 5-8. They've lost 3 of their last 4. They've lost some pretty poor teams along the way. Lost to Carolina by 20, lost to Houston by 16. Did beat Chicago in a rather, I'd say, a thrilling game after Trubisky fumbled inside his 5-yard line. And they also ended up losing to Green Bay. Fought valiantly, unfortunately did not do enough. But looking at some of the injuries they're dealing with, Stafford's clearly not at 100%. I'm not sure if he's going to make it through the game, assuming that Tennessee could actually generate some pressure, which is a huge asking point because of the fact that they haven't been able to do so all season long. But I do think that the Titans have a serious weapon, which everyone knows about, in Derrick Henry, and Detroit has struggled against the run all season long. Henry, of course, we all know how well he did against Jacksonville last week, going for 200-plus yards and going for 2 touchdowns. At the end of the day, I don't think Detroit can stop them. Even if they tried to, their secondary is also terrible, and I think that Tannehill could connect with A.J. Brown and company for a couple of big plays in the passing game. It's an issue because Detroit's giving up 29.9 points per game. They're giving up 275-plus passing yards per game and 132 plus rushing yards per game. So I don't really see where the stops are coming from for Detroit. Looking at some of the injuries, though, I talked about Stafford not being 100%. Of course, Galladay's not going to play again. You also have a huge injury to the offensive line as Frank Ragnow is out with a throat injury. So you have a couple of issues there on the offensive line, which could be pretty concerning because of the fact that if Stafford ends up getting hit in just, I'd say, one bone-crushing hit, he's probably done for the game. And Ragnow being out is a huge problem because he might be one of their best offensive linemen. But looking at Tennessee, while most teams are currently dealing with COVID issues or just injuries, the fact that it's Week 15, Tennessee's actually getting pretty healthy. Dory Jackson upgrade to probable. Vaccaro's probable. A.J. Brown's probable. A bunch of other people are probable. Plus, you have Tart coming back, a defensive tackle, as he ended up getting suspended, and now he's back, so that will provide a little bit of a boost to the depth in the defensive line. But at the end of the day, Detroit might keep this game close because they're Detroit, and they tend to lose in excruciating fashion. But Tennessee's won 3 of the last 4 games. They've looked a lot sharper. They beat Baltimore, beat Indianapolis. Jacksonville, of course, is awful. But either way, you end up beating 2 playoff teams. Got killed against Cleveland in the first half, then rallied pretty well in the second half in that game. But at the end of the day, I think 2.5 is a pretty solid deal to fade a Lions team with an injured quarterback, a banged-up offensive line, and a team with pretty much a backup head coach and has really no motivation to play moving forward, while Tennessee is still into the thick of the division title race. So for that reason, the 2-pick teaser here, 2.6-point teaser on FanDuel at -120 odds at 3:05 a.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be on Seattle -0.5 and the Titans -2.5, and that is going to pay out once again at -120. That's been Solomon Scott Selections. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.